So that brings me to the Finding Aid site, Philadelphia Area Archives Research Portal, which is awesome because it brings together more than 200 regional institutions' finding aids into one system and allows you to do keyword searching across all of the finding aids in the site. So to go back to Edith, if she's mentioned in any part of any finding aid in the more than 5,000 collections, you're going to get a hit. And even though it's sort of focused on the Philadelphia area, it's not just Philadelphia. There's lots and lots of wider geographic areas covered. So it's a great place to sort of start your research. The other thing that you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation about really doing your research is understanding what sort of institutions have strengths. So if you are interested, if your family member was a woman physician or a homeopathic physician, Drexel College of Medicine's Legacy Center focuses on both of those types of physicians. The Library Company and the Historical Society of Pennsylvania and Chester County Historical Society, for example, have really good collections dealing with colonial and early American families. But if you want Quakers, you can go to Swarthmore and Haverford, which have great Quaker materials. And Temple has materials that relate to sort of like Philadelphia urban organizations. And these are just examples, and those repositories have way more than those things, but those are sort of very concentrated, strengths that each one of those have.
Can you talk a little bit too, we had talked about this, but why something like, to go back to Edith Biddle, why is her stuff all over the place, right? So there's a good reason for it, right? But it can be frustrating to a first-time researcher. Like, well, why is it like this?
Absolutely. So one of the key tenets of the archival profession is really that you keep things together by the creator of the collection. So we can say that if Edith Biddle has her own papers, which as far as I know she doesn't, but if she did, they would be kept together, even if there is a Biddle family papers in the same exact repository. And everything that Edith sent will be in that person's collection. So let's just say that Edith and Mary Smith were best friends. If Edith sent material to Mary Smith, everything that was in Mary Smith's possession are in the Mary Smith papers. And so that means that things do get completely spread all over everything. And to go back to like the example of having one brother having papers at the Academy of Natural Sciences and one brother having material at the College of Physicians, if they were members of, the Anthropological Society of America, the Anthropological Society of America has its own records, and everything he did with that organization would be kept in their records. And then we talk about, people moving, and all of a sudden you have Aunt Jane who moved to California, and her papers are in the California Historical Society. So you end up with material very naturally going in lots of different directions. And it makes sense when you think about who sort of had the papers at the time of death, is how I try to think about how that works. So if, everything that got sent to me would be mine, even if those include famous people from, people who have collections elsewhere. So it ends up sort of being dispersed all across the city, the state, the country, internationally. It just depends on, what your family member was involved in. So it's a very puzzling and exciting game, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes. And I think that's a great way to look at it. It's a game. It's a scavenger hunt a little bit. And it's also a way to retrace your ancestors' steps.